Before I get into this game-breaking build, I'm going to mention there are some big spoilers up ahead of almost all the bosses in the game getting completely blown up by it, so fair warning to come. If you're okay with that and want to do that yourself in the game, keep watching. So let's start off with the most important thing you'll need for this setup, and that's the Harrower Devla's crossbow. Honestly, I most likely butcher that, but the names they put in these games are sometimes so unheard of to me, I feel like I'm speaking another language. But anyways, this is the only 3-round burst crossbow in the game, making it the best choice for this setup. When we combine it with the explosive bolts, which is what we're going to do, this clears out enemies so fast, it makes it feel like you're a Call of Duty character in the Dark Ages. Oh, what's this? There's a room that needs to be breached and cleared? Not a problem. Oh, is that a sniper up there? You know, I'm somewhat of a sniper myself. There has not been one enemy I've came across where I struggled or even felt like there was a chance of me dying. That is how busted and broken this setup is. Now, you're probably thinking, oh, that's cool and all, but what about when you run out of ammo? And here's the thing, you ready? I will never run out because I have an infinite amount, and it's not through cheating or mods or anything like that. With no ammo, I can keep firing away as much as I want to. And to make this possible, all I had to do was throw on the Umbral Eye of Lydia, the numb witch, that makes it cost health to shoot the crossbow when there's no ammo left. While it doesn't completely cost health, it gives you wither damage, which is even better because when you do land those shots, you regain all of that wither damage right back as health, giving you infinite ammo. In return, just repeating that cycle over and over. To make this setup a lot more efficient, I threw on the inner serpent pendant that reloads the crossbow every time you roll. So instead of having to stand there like a sitting duck and pray to God nobody throws something at you or runs up on you, you can simply roll out of the way, create some space, and fire another volley off with ease. It gives it more of a rapid fire feel, also taking out enemies a lot quicker because in turn you are firing much faster by speeding up the reload time with rolling instead of doing it yourself. And while I'm on the topic of taking out enemies much faster, explosive bolts aren't the only type of bolts I like to use. Like, yes, they can take out all of the enemies in the game easily, even the ones that are resistant to fire damage, it still blows them away like they didn't even have that resistance in the first place. But these other bolts can take those enemies down even faster though. The ones I'm talking about are the twisted bolts, almost the same thing as the explosive bolts, but instead of having a big fiery explosion, these have a big holy explosion. They're best used against targets that have a resistance to fire damage, usually the enemies that look like demons or have some sort of fire to them, like the Ruiner for example, the most demon looking creature in this game. Holy damage is going to do a bit more to them, just like how the explosive bolts would do more towards guys that I guess look holy or they look like they're about to go on a crusade. But yeah, the twisted bolts come clutch, but again, the only ammo absolutely needed is the explosive bolts. Now, when it comes to ways of making it do more damage, there's a couple of things we can add to it. First off, the best ring we can grab is going to be the Black Feather Ranger ring. It increases the damage of all bows and crossbows by 20%. That is absolutely huge and probably the best thing you can get. If you do a New Game Plus or have somebody drop one of these for you, you can equip both of them and get a 40% damage buff instead since the rings stack. If you can't, not a big issue. One is more than enough, so feel free to throw on whatever ring you have. You don't entirely need both rings, one will do just fine. Another thing we can do to increase the damage by up to 60% more, which is an extremely huge damage buff, is through our weapons. Like the ones you're meant to use throughout the game instead of running around only using the crossbow the entire time. Yeah, those ones. The weapon itself doesn't matter, especially for your offhand. You really just want to grab any weapon that can socket strength runes, and for those of you who don't know what that looks like, they're the weapons that have a circle shape in them, or if they look like a weird oval with a bit of a triangle in it. This option will come up when you're upgrading your weapons more and more as you play, but to know if your weapon is going to have this socket, I'd recommend hitting up the wiki page and looking through the weapons there. It'll tell you exactly what type of runes you'll be able to place on every weapon. But to be on the safe side, you can grab the exact weapon I'm I'm using, Jeffrey's Dagger. This one, you can socket any runes you want and it weighs next to nothing, which is ideal since we're not really going to be fighting with it. So the runes you want to put on to get that 60% damage buff are the Alistrix runes. Again, I have no idea if I'm saying that right, but I'm going to keep going as if I did. The runes itself increase the damage of all ranged and throwable weapons by 10%. Just make sure not to put this on a shield, because if you do, it'll increase your maximum ammo count instead. Very important, it goes on a weapon and not a shield. The only downside about the runes is you can only grab 2 of them per playthrough, so unless you have someone that can drop them for you or do another 2 playthroughs, you won't be able to fully max out for that 60% damage buff. Just like before, not a huge issue, I only have 3 of them myself for a 30% buff, and every enemy still drops really quickly. Lastly, before I get into the stats, I know I said we're not really using our primary weapons, but you should still try to grab something that's at least half decent. For me, I went with the Skin Stealer Spear, bit of a tongue twister, mainly because it had really good scaling with agility. Well, not really good, more like the best scaling possible. It's got good range, fast attacking speed, and it came off as a good weapon just for picking off really weak or lower health enemies. You always just want to have a decent backup option for whatever unpredictable thing might happen. Now, with everything out of the way, let's get into those stats. So the bare minimum needed is 16 strength and 20 agility to use the crossbow, which is kind of all you need, to be honest. The primary weapons are more just like a nice bonus if anything. Once you've gotten the minimum required, you should then focus heavily into agility to increase your damage, and obviously some points into vitality for health. You don't need to put as many points into vitality as I did. I just hate getting 1 or 2 shotted randomly in these types of games, so I did go a little overboard, not by crazy amounts though, but 30 vitality for a range setup is a little bit too much. You can put more points into agility for damage like I just talked about, or you can put some into endurance to increase your stamina some more. I noticed when I was using the crossbow that it depletes your stamina bar extremely fast, so the more endurance you have, the more volleys you can throw out before, having to wait for it to regenerate. Well, if you guys enjoyed the video, be sure to drop a like and subscribe. I'm going to be posting more build related videos for Lord of the Fallen, so if you want to see them, you know what to do. And as usual, thanks for watching everyone, and I hope I'll see you all in the next one.